welcome back to the Metaphoric Music Review. It's our 51st episode. It's a new year of Metaphoric. I wanted to make a New Year's resolution, guys. Let's tweet. Let's tweet more. Tweet on the Metaphoric account more. All the time. Can we do that?
Yeah, I try. I sometimes I get on it. I'm like, I'm going to tweet, and I just can't think of anything to say.
All right.
So that's you guys help out.
Our New Year's resolution. Yeah, we're going to tweet. Tweet us.
This is pretty much all me.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. It's my resolution. I'll do better. But anyway, I'm Gabe.
I'm Dan.
I'm Darin.
We're talking about the music that Pitchfork thinks everyone should be talking about. If you don't know, Pitchfork is an online music magazine. It's basically the loudest voice in music today. Each week, they review a bunch of albums. Most get pretty mediocre scores, but a couple get this coveted BNM or BNR label. Dan, what is that?
BNM, Best New Music. BNR, Best New Reissue.
Right. So those are the releases that Pitchfork thinks all lovers of music should be talking about, and that's exactly what we're going to do. But we're also going to talk about a few notable pans, some gems that Pitchfork is either underrated or ignored completely, Pitchfork's weekly Sunday classic review, and now Pitchfork's BNTs, or Best New Tracks. It's important to remember, though, you don't need to know or care about Pitchfork at all to enjoy this podcast. We're going to tell you everything you need to know about the week in music. So, Darin, what are we talking about this week?
For the week of March 27th through April 2nd, we'll be discussing Arthur Russell's Instrumentals, which received a BNR. And for the Sunday Classic, we had all three Liquid EPs. They're self-titled, Successive Reflexes, and Optimo. Plus, this week, the founder of Roland, Ikutaro Kakehashi, passed away at the age of 87. Kakehashi oversaw the creation of many important electronic instruments and technological innovations, including the iconic TR-808 drum machine, which became a cornerstone in the development of hip-hop, dance music, and a lot more. To pay tribute, we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the TR-808, and we'll look back at one of the highest profile shoutouts, Kanye West's 808s and Heartbreak album from 2008.
Yeah. A couple more things to mention. Pitchfork also posted a 50 best Britpop albums list, but we're going to skip it. Why are we skipping that? Do we just hate Britpop?
It's shit, and we've already talked about it, so we did different class.
Do you hate Britpop, Darin?
I hate such a strong word, but when I saw Pulp was number one, I was already kind of cringing.
I think we all universally hated that album when we reviewed it a long time ago, didn't we?
Yeah. So number one was Pulp's Different Class, and it was, I don't know, it's not that good.
But you like Oasis and stuff.
Yeah, but they keep doing these lists of genres that have 2 to 3 great bands. So there's Blur,
that's the problem.
There's Oasis, and we don't need a whole list, basically. So anyway, we're gonna skip it. But if you want to listen to our thoughts on Pulp, you can check it out in the archive at metaphoricmusic.com. Dan's also going to tell us about yet another field trip. He's on a roll. And, because one Kanye album this episode is not enough to satisfy Dan, he wants to share a quick news story before we get started. So go for it, Dan.
Yeah, I'm just trying to make this a Kanye podcast. Kanye's Life of Pablo has become the first streaming-only album to go platinum with over 3 billion streams worldwide. So, if he ain't the greatest, I must have missed it.
It's actually been a while since we've talked about Kanye on the podcast.
I know, but it's too long. It's been laying low.
Starting the next 50 episodes off right,
Yep, very true. All right, well, first things first, Best New Tracks. This week we got 2 BNTs, like I said, Best New Tracks, which Pitchfork typically uses to highlight promising singles. What we like to do with these is listen to them right now, right at the top of the show, and share some quick reactions in real time, just to decide whether the upcoming albums from which they are taken could potentially be worthy of that coveted BNM. So, Darin, what's first?
Up first, we have Slowdive with Sugar for the Pill. Let's listen. On May 5th, shoegaze legends Slowdive will release their first new album in 22 years. The first single failed to earn a BNT, and Pitchfork actually criticized it for rehashing the band's earlier styles. But on this one, Pitchfork argues they're on to something new. What were your thoughts on Sugar for the Pill?
I mean, I thought it was, not bad. It wasn't, groundbreaking. I'm not sure we needed a new Slowdive song after this long.
Yeah. A little behind the scenes look. I'll edit it out, but Darin like fucked up reading that part like so many times that I've forgotten this bland song just in that space of time.
To be fair, though,
I don't know if that says more about Darin or about the song.
Well, to be fair, he did fuck up so many times. It's been like 10 minutes.
Yeah, but shouldn't a good song like last?
No, I agree.
Memory a little longer than 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell the difference between this track belongs on, either of their two previous albums. I don't really see where this is like on to something new. Do you guys?
I just, what is with like this thing of like these bands coming back after 25 years, like there's only been like a couple times that's been worthwhile. It like is usually,
I think like
just it either sucks or it's like okay.
I think like genuinely, we have a habit of doing this with music history, which is like, now it's like, wow, My Bloody Valentine, wow, Slowdive, like these were like the absolute legends of shoegaze. And like in reality, like shoegaze wasn't shit at the time. Like a couple, like weirdos liked it. It was an underground thing. Nobody gave a shit about My Bloody Valentine. And then it's like these bands see that like 20 years after breaking up, they're like really revered and they could go on tour and like headline festivals and make a ton of money, so it's like that's I'm okay with that. But if that's all it is, then I don't care to listen to your new album.
Yeah, don't release a new album. I mean, even the Stooges did this, and they released 2 shit albums. But it's like, yeah, I mean, if you want to do that, I mean, Neutral Milk Hotel, they had the right idea, went on tour. No album, not disappeared again. Like that.
But you know how much
great.
money they would make if they put out a new album. You know what I mean?
True, but I mean, they probably made more money on that like 2-year tour they did.
Well, they could do both.
True, yeah, yeah. But at least he has the artistic integrity to only do the one. Watch, I'm gonna say this before this album comes out. Surprise, Neutral Milk Hotel album.
Yeah, like tomorrow there's a surprise release. I don't know, Darin. Do you think there's any like saving grace? I mean, you said it could fit on either of those 2 albums, and those are 2 pretty good albums.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, I didn't think it was like a terrible song, but I think reading that Pitchfork thinks that they're onto something new. I don't know. I didn't really catch that, and I don't know if I'm really that interested in listening to, Slowdive rehashing Slowdive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now,
I agree.
What to Dan's point, I mean, there are a couple of cases where bands have like super long careers or go away. One of your favorite bands did that, but I think the important thing to note is that they'd really changed their sound a lot, and I don't know if Slowdive is going to do that. You know what I mean? I would probably be more interested if it really truly was a wild departure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, does it sound like shoegaze to you guys? Would either of you guys qualify that as shoegaze?
It was a lot less like shoegazy than I would have expected, but it was still like it was just kind of shoegaze light.
Well,
I mean, it's not like they were breaking new ground or anything.
Well, there's like a track or 2 on like, was it Suvlaki, that has that like clean guitar. There's no like fuzz distorted guitar, and that's exactly what this
sounded like one of those. Yeah, I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I think so. And then it was just sort of like, the dude sounds a little old and rusty now. It's not like this youthful, airy, breathy vocal. It's like a guy who's been like smoking Marlboro Reds for the last couple of years, It
really did, yeah.
So, I don't know. Will either of you guys at least like check out the album? Because I don't even know if I care to.
No, I mean, if it gets a BNM, I will because of the podcast. But otherwise, I don't really like to, ruin the
right
the past enjoyment of a band. I didn't listen to the new Jesus and Mary Chain record. I hope never to. And unless this gets a BNM, I won't bother.
Yeah, I think I agree with Dan on that one.
All right, well, next BNT, the last BNT this week, Kendrick Lamar's Humble. It's in all caps, so I yelled it. Let's listen.
My left stroke just went viral. Right stroke put a baby in a spiral. Soprano C, we like to keep it on the high note. It's levels to it, you and I know. Bitch, be humble. Hold up, bitch. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Bitch, sit down. Little bitch, be humble. Sit down. Be humble.
Last week, we skipped the BNTs, but Kendrick earned one for The Heart Part 4, his first single since 2016's demo collection, Untitled Unmastered. This week, he's dropped another one and earned a second BNT. It's produced by, King of Bangers, Mike Will Made It, and both tracks see Kendrick back in the aggressive attack mode of his legendary Control verse. In The Heart Part 4, this is kind of interesting, Kendrick says, quote, "Y'all got till April the 7th to get your shit together," which has fueled tons of speculation that we're going to get a surprise Kendrick album this weekend, in just like 2 days. So, what are your guys' thoughts about this track, Humble?
This track is like an absolute banger. It's like way good.
Yeah, I totally agree. This is fire.
The like sort of like artsy poet to Pimp a Butterfly Kendrick, it seems like it's long gone. We're back to like that was a little detour, and we're back to like when he was making like backseat freestyle and like swimming pools and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was gonna say it does remind me of like backseat freestyle a lot, which is like an also a banger. This track is just great. I mean, Mike Will Made It is like the greatest.
Yeah, it was pretty. I'm trying to decide. I mean, I guess the thing with Kendrick is like, I don't know. I got used to his sort of like actually humble persona, where he was just sort of like, oh, I'm just like the thinker. I'm like the quiet, introverted thinker guy. And it's like he's like really being like super braggadocious and, just like kind of an asshole. And I guess he sort of earned it because he is like probably the best rapper in the game right now. But is it a good look for him? Do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, he's earned it. He's probably at the top of the game. And, it's rap. You're allowed to be less than humble.
Yeah, I just think that even in a song like this where he's being, super aggressive and stuff, I feel like Kendrick the Thinker is still kind of coming in like with his words, like his lyrics and stuff, and sort of the point that he's getting at, that the fact that he's like making a point, Yeah. I think it's cool. I mean, I didn't check out the other single. Did you guys?
No, I didn't.
So I wonder if
no, I forgot.
I wonder if this whole album is going to be like this, or if it's going to fit in the context of like some 20 track album. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I'm curious because I was like, the reason I didn't check out the previous single is because I was just like over Kendrick after like To Pimp a Butterfly, and then we got like its continuation with Untitled Unmastered, and then there was just like all of this like jerking off about how like smart Kendrick was all the time. Like, I've bitched many times about how literally everybody that played any part on making To Pimp a Butterfly, Pitchfork has like hyped up beyond, like any reasonable measure. We get like mediocre shit like Thundercat and like Kamasi Washington is all of a sudden like the greatest thing that ever existed. And I was just over it. So I like had he was like kind of dead to me. And I know you felt a little bit the same way. Dan, has this kind of won you back?
Yeah, I mean that's why I didn't. I saw he had released that other song. I didn't really, I didn't jump on it. I kind of forgot about it. And then when this one came out, I actually listened to this the day it came out. So.
Oh, me too, Dan. I wasn't going to reveal that, but
okay, good. Yeah. I didn't want to lie to all the listeners.
Fuck?
So I bet. Yeah.
What the fuck?
I've heard it a couple times now.
I've been banging this one. Yeah. Oof.
Yeah. It's just like, so good. It's back for me because everyone loved Pimp a Butterfly. I thought, I can see why it was good. It's just not something that like I really care about, honestly. And then, this is what I want from Kendrick and, rap in general, basically. But I am a little worried that, we compared it to Backseat Freestyle. I'm a little worried that this is like sort of just like one song in the midst of, a 20 track record, and it's like kind of not really like anything else. That remains to be seen, hopefully in 2 days or whatever.
Yeah, that's a weird thing is like on that record, Good Kid, Mad City, you would get stuff like Backseat Freestyle, but you felt that he was like playing a role. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, he's not like, there was
it wasn't like him.
Yeah. To the record. So I'm wondering, like, is this song Humble, is this him like playing a braggadocious rapper and kind of toying with that idea, or is this going to be a whole record of like the Control verse over and over again? And I can't decide if that would be a good thing or not, because maybe it would get like fucking tiring.
It might, it very easily could get old. But
This feels like it sounds like a great single. Like if this wasn't on an album, like it would be okay. You know what I mean? Like this can live on its own, honestly. Yeah,
I agree that this would be like. I mean, it's hard to say without the context of the record, but as it stands right now, I think this would be something that would be like, like an all day, like something that's like not on a record.
Exactly.
You put it on your banger playlist and go to town.
Are we getting a record?
I mean, he's released 2 songs. If you release 2 songs, I think a record's coming. I mean, maybe not on April 7th, but is that a Friday? I don't know what day it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well then, maybe it will.
2 days from now,
because I can't think what else you would have to get your shit together by April 7th for. It's not tax day yet or anything. maybe Kendrick likes to get them in early, beat the lines at the post office.
That's what he's all hyped about. He's getting like a big return.
Did you guys Did either of you see the video for this song?
Yeah, I was actually going to comment on that. I thought the video was pretty badass.
It's like the baddest ass video in a long. Like it's 2017. I like rarely give a shit about a music video anymore. But this was a pretty like I suggest watching the video. This was a pretty badass video.
Yeah, I actually did watch it because Pitchfork's little BNT review talks about how cool the video is. So I watched it on Tidal. I hope their videos are like in losses. I'm not sure. I can't verify.
Original film quality.
Yeah, it's all analog.
33 millimeter.
Yes. Yeah, the video was pretty cool, I thought.
Yeah, I thought it was real badass.
Yeah, I think it's always impressive in 2017 when you can watch a music video and actually be impressed.
And it's
by
worthwhile.
The visuals. Yeah.
It's rare.
Yeah. All right. Well, sounds like we're tentatively excited. We'll see what this Friday brings. We ready to talk about Dan's field trip?
Yeah.
Press my thumb onto your tongue, hand the knife up to me. No mouth, no neck, no rest. The white palm of self-hate stays with you.
All right, went on another field trip. What is this, like 4 shows in a row?
Yeah, that's a lot.
A
lot in a row.
Got another one next week too. So
you're just gonna have your own segment, basically.
Yeah, I know. Basically, you guys never get out of the house. That's the thing. But this time, I saw Xiu Xiu perform Angelo Badalamente's score for Twin Peaks. Went up to Jacksonville, Florida, which is several hours away from me. It was in like a movie theater. It's called the Sunray Cinema. It's like an art house kind of theater, which was like a really cool place. And it was like really rad to see a show in like a movie theater. Like I was sitting there, I was eating popcorn, got some Sour Patch Kids. I wanted nachos, but the line was long. It was like the best way to watch a concert ever. All concerts should be at movie theaters. I've decided. But besides that, I'm not like the biggest Xiu Xiu fan. Like, I honestly don't really like him that much. My like wife is a bigger fan, so we went. I obviously love Twin Peaks, and I love that soundtrack. So it was like best of both worlds for us, and it was awesome. They like put on a show. The like lead guy Jamie, he's like nuts. He like does all these weird dances. I hate how he sings. I think that's why I don't like Xiu Xiu that much. He like acts like he's fucking Dracula or some shit, and like
yeah.
He should cut that out, and they'd be like a really good band. But luckily, the Twin Peaks soundtrack does not have that much singing on it, so we only got a little bit. But it was rad. It was lots of instruments switching around, weird noises that I don't know how the hell they made them. It was fantastic. I like really enjoyed it. So if they come around,
so, yeah, I thought that like didn't they open for Swans on a tour? I thought that maybe you had seen them opening for Swans.
No, they did open for Swans. Jamie was kind of like BFFs with Giraffe for a little bit, but No, that was like not a tour that they came around here on, but yeah, they are BFFs with Swans. But yeah, I just his goddamn Dracula voice like really ruins it for me. But
I don't know. I love Xiu Xiu. I think they're so awesome. I feel like they've like, you know, I really enjoyed that Twin Peaks soundtrack that they put out. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know, their recent albums have just kind of been like phoning it in a little bit, and but I still really enjoy like some of their kind of mid 2000s stuff. I think they're like very underrated.
I still like it. It's just his voice takes it from, it could be great, but it's like okay. Yeah, what was that album they just released? It got like a horrible score on Pitchfork.
Yeah.
I
didn't even listen to it.
I tried listening. My wife tried to sell it to me. Yeah, I wasn't buying though. It wasn't that great.
Do you remember Xiu Xiu, Darin? Like they were like the trendiest thing going, when we were like getting into indie music kind of.
Yeah, I remember them, but for some reason the way you guys are describing it, I feel like I don't remember what that sounded like at all. I don't remember a Dracula sounding voice.
It's just like he just sings like so stupid, but
it's like very dramatic.
Yeah, it's like overly dramatic.
Theater or something.
But you say that, and I always thought like Xiu Xiu was like the biggest band, on the scene and stuff. And so I thought this was gonna like sell out real quick and shit. I got like tickets no problem. It was like, I think it was sold out by the night, but it wasn't like, I thought there'd be people camped out, in line and stuff, and it like really just didn't seem like that big of a deal. I was kind of shocked by that, but it was great. I don't think they're doing a lot more of these Twin Peaks shows. It was like part of a film festival that was going on, so I think that's why they did it. They played like several David Lynch things, which unfortunately I didn't get to see since I don't live in Jacksonville. I couldn't stay the whole time, but yeah, if they come around your area doing one of these shows, even if you don't like Xiu Xiu, it's worth checking out. It was very rad. I posted some pictures on our Instagram and our Twitter. You wanted to tweet more. I tweeted some.
Oh, yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
We're off to a good start.
Yeah, there we go. So, if people are interested, at Metaphoric Music on both of those things, they can see a couple pics.
All right. We ready to talk about Roland and Kanye?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right, as Darin mentioned earlier, Japanese engineer and entrepreneur Ikutaro Kakehashi. Am I saying that right, Darin?
That sounds good to me.
You said it very professionally. I was just very impressed with the way you pronounced it.
He seemed like he knew. Yeah.
Well, I watch a lot of anime, so yeah.
Oh, okay. Don't admit that. We're recording. He passed away this week at the age of 87. And he founded Acetone, Roland, and helped invent MIDI technology, a standardization tool that basically allows electronic instruments to communicate with each other no matter what company makes them. Like he literally like assembled like, hey, the Korg people, hey, the whatever people, let's all get together and decide on some standardization tool. This was obviously huge for the development of all electronic music. But with Roland, Kakehashi oversaw the creation of many innovative instruments and technologies, but probably none more important than the TR-808, which was introduced in 1980 and was one of the very first programmable drum machines. There were some drum machines, but you had to use preset beats. The drum sounds were very crude and unrealistic. Like, didn't sound like actual drums. But Kakehashi hoped musicians would use it for recording demos. All right, like demos for songs. Have like a little drum thing. You're going to bring the drummer in. Unfortunately, everybody hated it, and the product was a total flop. Probably because it was so unrealistic sounding. In 1982, though, Marvin Gaye used the 808 on his instant classic single Sexual Healing, which is a goddamn great song. And the underground artists who were in the process of inventing hip-hop, house, and techno around that time fell in love with its workflow and particularly its booming bass drum sound, which was a huge hit on dance floors. I've been trying to like appreciate. Can you imagine like before this, you never heard like a truly deep as fuck bass sound like in a club.
No,
you know what I mean?
I mean for real, like a real bass drum. Like I have
it's shit. It's nothing.
I mean, I have a 26-inch bass drum, which is like a John Bonham like huge thing, and it's not nowhere near as deep as that 808.
It's bullshit, right? Can you imagine being in a club and hearing your first 808 bass?
It would be amazing.
Blow your motherfucking mind. Anyway, Roland discontinued this, Failing Machines production in 1983, but by the late 80s, it had become synonymous with hip hop. Basically, every 80s rap artist of note was using it extensively, but the sound had also made its way into pop music with artists like Phil Collins and Whitney Houston using it on enormous singles of this kind of electro pop era. In the years since, the 808's reputation has only continued to grow. For instance, Nine Inch Nails used it to create maybe the greatest bass thump of the 90s on their song Closer. Would you guys agree with that? That's like got to be one of the best bass thumps of the entire decade.
Yeah, I know you're like a big Nine Inch Nails stan, and I really can't stand them, but I will give you that. That is like the coolest bass thump.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I hoped you would at least admit that. But literally everyone from Outkast to Aphex Twin to Rihanna to like you name it has used it at some point as well. As many publications have noted, the 808 is basically to hip-hop and modern pop what the Fender Stratocaster is to rock and roll. Fun side note, the 808 cost about $1,000 when it was first released, but was soon available for under $100 in pawn shops everywhere. That might be like kind of why, it became popular with hip-hop artists, who just wanted to, get making music on the cheap. Lots of recreations have been released in the years since, but if you want an original nowadays, it'll cost you almost $5,000. Anyway, to pay tribute to this incredible machine, we wanted to talk a little bit about one of the 808's highest profile shoutouts, Kanye West's 808s and Heartbreak album from 2008. I'll throw it to Darin for a little background on that.
You wanna tell your friends that you're leaving me. They say that they don't see what you see in me. You wait a couple months, then you gon' see. You'll never find nobody better than me. Tonight I hear him talk the cold story ever told. Somewhere far along this road, he lost his soul to a woman so heartless.
Yeah, so even though Kanye's 808s and Heartbreak features prominent use of the TR-808 on almost every track, it might seem a little weird to pay tribute by looking at this one album instead of, say, an 80s hip-hop classic, but this record actually has a pretty cool connection to the 808 that goes beyond just the instrument. In the year preceding this album's release, Kanye's mother passed away from complications during cosmetic surgery, and plus his long-term relationship with his fiancée dissolved. Calling the project therapeutic, Kanye abandoned the sounds of hip-hop and turned instead to the sparse beats of the 808 and the icy minimalist synth-pop production. Even more controversially, Kanye treated his vocals with auto-tune, and instead of rapping, he sang on every track. And it's easy to forget today, but in 2008, auto-tune was widely seen as the worst thing to ever happen to music. Countless artists claimed it was making talentless people successful, and even Kanye's BFF Jay-Z put out a track called DOA, Death of Autotune. 808s and Heartbreak was financially successful, but earned mixed and sometimes very negative reviews for these reasons. As it turns out, though, the next generation of hip-hop and alternative R&B artists found Kanye's radical move very inspiring. Drake, The Weeknd, Frank Ocean, James Blake, and countless others all built their emotional, minimalist R&B styles on Kanye's template, proving that, like the drum machine it's named after, 808s and Heartbreak was way ahead of its time. So, guys, previous feelings about this album? Were you listening to it back when it first came out?
Not when it first came out, but as soon as I got into Kanye, I love this album. It's one of my favorites, not only from Kanye but probably ever. And I never really got the hate on it.
See, I've always hated it.
Really,
I was really into Kanye when it came out. I don't know. I can't fully remember, but I think like sometime around late registration was like the exact moment that I was like discovering hip hop. Really, really dug it. Really dug, the previous album, College Dropout. I loved Graduation for like its like amazing singles, but it was, a little like less fully developed than like those masterpieces that came before it. But I was just basically like really looking forward to this thing. And I wasn't really like following music news, so I didn't know what was happening. I was just kind of like, oh, new Kanye is coming out. So when I, turned it on, I was like, what the fuck is this? Like I was not, prepared in any way. And I just really thought it was trash. I actually still don't like it, but we'll get to that.
Oh.
But how did you feel about it, Darin?
So, in 2008, I don't think I was much of a Kanye fan. I definitely didn't like Kanye actually, like prior to, I would say 2007, 2008. But that was like hip hop in general. I was way behind pretty much everyone, I think, in that regard. But when I did, really get into Kanye, like probably in the following year, 2009, definitely 2010, obviously, and checking out his back catalog, this was one I just kind of always skipped over, largely because it just didn't sound like anything that I was listening to at the time, which was probably my dark fantasy, and it really didn't sound anything like College Dropout, all that kind of stuff. So it just stuck out, and I had heard a lot of negativity about it. I think that it just kind of never really came back and listened to it, even though I'm a huge Kanye fan. Just never really, there's the singles and stuff that I enjoyed, but I was really looking forward to listening to this week because I was actually going to put a lot of attention to it, and I'd say it came out on the positive end for sure.
You see, I skipped over it when I first got into Kanye as well, mostly because of like the bad reviews. At that time, 2008, 2009, we were all like real into all music. That was when, all music was ruling the scene. And they gave this, I can't remember if it's 2 or 2. Is it 2 or 2.5? It's one of those.
Yeah.
And I mean, their word was basically, gospel at that point. And so I really saved this one for last. It was the last Kanye thing I heard. And
well, and the auto-tune was like...
thought they were wrong.
Well, auto-tune really was running rampant at that time.
No, it was, yeah. But I just always thought...
It was, but it was like not serious. It was like, like there were all these like purists that were like, oh, this is the worst thing. There's still kind of people like this. You talk about like Young Thug in that way and stuff. But
I hate it.
But at that time, it was really... I mean, I really remember like auto-tune was like this hot debate. You guys remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
like you said, Jay-Z had Death of Autotune. That's Blueprint 3, right?
Maybe. I stopped keeping up with this.
Yeah,
he died to me.
I agree with you there, but I'm pretty sure it
All
is
right.
Blueprint 3.
So for people who haven't checked it out, let's try to describe this very, crazy sound. I mean, it's hard to appreciate how crazy it was at the time, but how would we describe the sound of this record?
Yeah, I mean, if we're telling somebody that's never heard this album, assuming they're familiar with any other Kanye album, it basically does not sound like whatever you're thinking. It's basically like almost not a rap album. There's really not that much rapping on it. It's really, but it's not even like an R&B album. It's really like its own kind of thing. I mean, Kanye's singing through this auto-tune, but it's just like the coldest sounding album, and just it sounds like Heartbreak sounds basically. It's like, so I mean, I don't want to get like corny or anything, but like there is just like so much like emotion in it. It's something that like I don't think people that aren't familiar with Kanye, it's not something that you would like expect from him like whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're somebody who's a Kanye fan and who hasn't really listened to this, I would tell you two things. Number one, I would say that this has a lot more in common with like Dark Fantasy and Yeezus and Life of Pablo than his previous albums, I would say. I think I can...
It is kind of the bridge, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you think of a song like Runaway, and the end of that song, it sounds like a not really even a distant relative, a close relative to anything on this record. The second thing I would say is that if you've been keeping up with like The Weeknd, Drake, all those other artists I kind of mentioned earlier, then I think you'll find that this sounds very close to those, and you'd probably be very surprised. Like I still feel that this was like a 2008 record. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that's right. And yeah, I mean, it basically sounds like an entire album of like the outro of Runaway and like the outro of Blood on the Leaves, kind of like it's so it's that kind of thing. And so here's what like is weird to me is it's quite synth poppy, like almost like new wavy in a way. And there are a lot of hooks here. Like there are a lot of hooks. So it's not quite exactly like Drake or something like that, where it's sort of like this moody minimalism and he's sort of like crooning and then occasionally rapping. And, they're like pop songs produced in this really icy, cold way. And of course, we got to shout out like the 808, like the beats are always like really like they're kind of like tribal, but in this like robotic way. Actually, this album is like the Neil Young's Trans of our generation, basically. But
I don't know about that.
Yeah. It kind of is. It kind of exactly is. But it's like very like, you know, robotic sounding and then like weird. But then there are these hooks. Like it's so what always bugs me about this is that, you know, it's so poppy sometimes, actually. It's like not that like it kills like the moody, emotional, like, oh, his mother died thing, because like, you know, the hook will be like a straight up pop as fuck song. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know. I mean, that happens. I mean, but like Heartless is the big single from this. Even if you've not heard this album, you probably know that song. But you know, it has that like pop hook and everything. But if you like, I feel so corny like saying this shit, but like if you like pay attention to the lyrics and everything, like the whole album has this like real sense of like sadness and.
But you could like I can like picture like Flock of Seagulls being like, you worry about the wrong things. Like,
yeah, and that'd be a great song.
It gets really fucking like synth poppy in a way that kills any kind of like sadness.
Maybe it's because I love like 80s synth pop, you know, soft cell. I'm not gonna hate on Flock of Seagulls even. So you know, maybe that's why I love this album. It's like cool.
Well, not that it's bad, but it's not gonna make me sad.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I mean, I kind of agree with what Gabe is saying here, and you know, I feel like Dark Fantasy is like a darker, more emotional, you know, album for some reason. That whereas this one just seems, I don't know, like I don't get that same kind of feeling. I mean, there's a lot of really great songs on here in my opinion, but yeah, I mean, they are very poppy, and like you notice that like Kanye, he's not like, you know, cursing a whole lot. He's not really talking about.
There's
none at all, right? Is that
there's no cursing on this record whatsoever.
Oh, wow.
The closest thing is Lil Wayne says, "You think your ish don't stink, but you're Mrs. P."
Right.
That's the closest we get, and that's something he did that on purpose. Because you know the line, "Why do you have to be so Dr. Evil?" It was originally so fucking evil. But he didn't want to cuss on it, so he
see, like this is weird to me because what I think is going on, right?
Yeah, there you go.
That he's like trying to do something really radical, but then he wants it to succeed, like on the pop charts.
But what's wrong with that?
And on his next album, he'll stop giving a fuck about that, and he'll send to like David Bowie levels of greatness. But here, it's like he wants to do something really radical, radically change hip hop, make like these icy, atmospheric, ambient things. But he still wants to score like pop hits that, you know, are like hot on the charts or whatever.
But what's
top 20
but what's wrong with that? I mean, I think it's it's impressive to do something
pulling in two opposite directions at once. It's like that's what it feels disjointed and weird to me.
I mean, I'll give you that there is a little bit like RoboCop kind of doesn't fit the like sad you know, theme in it, but it kind of does too. You know, it's like. You know, he broke up with his like long-term fiance during you know the recording of this album, and you know it's that song is like the describing like a relationship like breaking down and everything. Like it's not specifically sad. You know I hate. I
don't care so much about the themes. I'm just like I wish he would have committed to the enterprise of like just radically going off in his own direction.
I don't know. I think he did.
He's still tied to. You know, I gotta put some like big hooks in here. I gotta get T-Pain on here and stuff like that to sell records.
I mean, I think he did. You know, I think it's just because he, you know, this has hits and he.
Well, I mean, I think you described it as a bridge, Dan, and I think that's a fair way to describe its placement.
Yeah, I mean, am I saying this is as good or better than Dark Twisted Fantasy? Like, no, not at all. But I mean, this is still like a fantastic record. Something, you know, like I mean, not you know what it spawned. You know, Drake owes his entire career basically to this one record.
Okay, yes.
So like to make
that,
to make a record and spawn the next biggest you know artist of our generation, you know, off of one idea you had.
All right.
It's pretty impressive.
So that's an interesting question, right? I mean, Darin, what do you think? Like, if something is not like that enjoyable on its own, but it's so influential, that it literally like the current state of modern music. I mean, I would say like Drake, all these like alternative R&B guys, even like trap kind of owes its like moody synthiness to this. Does it have like, is it a classic? Even if the record itself isn't that great?
I mean, I definitely think that it changes the way we have to look at it when the landscape of the music that follows changes to match it almost. You know what I mean? If we were listening to a totally different type of sound and it wasn't really relative to this, then I think we would continue to look at this in a negative light. You know what I mean? And look and say like, look, he tried this and it failed and music moved on without it. You know what I mean? But you can't have the conversation about the state of music right now or hip hop and not, look back and say, but in 2008, look what Kanye was doing. Even if what he did, what he created is not necessarily the best. It's like, it's kind of like the discussion we were having about Baroque music, right? I mean, there was a lot of Baroque music before Bach came along. He didn't necessarily add a whole lot to it. He just kind of came in at the tail end and was like, all right, here it is. But, if we were talking about him, you would have to talk about what came before. And I think that's kind of where this album belongs. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of greater, a lot of greater albums out there than this, but this one kind of started it.
I mean, I got a quote here from the senior editor of Billboard who calls it the equivalent of Bob Dylan going electric. And I completely agree with that. That this record is Bob Dylan going electric.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty legendary, but it's very much like Bob Dylan going electric because Bob Dylan's first electric album, he only half goes electric, and I feel like this, and then we get Highway 61. All right, so then it's full blown, and then it's like. Amazing. And it's not that like Bringing It All Back Home isn't like an absolute perfect record, but he only half goes electric. And I feel like here Kanye, like, he's still worried about the pop charts and
Grammys,
stuff. And it's his next album where he goes like fully electric, where now it's like all bets are off.
No, I think that's a great comparison. This maybe is Bringing It All Back Home, and Dark Twisted Fantasy is Highway 61, but Bringing It All Back Home is still a 10 out of 10 record.
But I don't think this is. Would you call this a 10 out of 10?
Me?
Yeah,
but without a
10 out of 10.
No. I love this record and have for a long time.
But it's the same score as Dark Twisted Fantasy, as Yeezus.
I mean, yeah,
there are a bunch of shitty songs.
They're all 30 out of 10,
aren't there?
No, there's not a single shitty song on this record.
Like Coldest Winter is a crap song.
Are you shitting me?
Is a crap song.
Are you shitting me? Coldest Winter is like the raddest song. I love that song. No,
it's not.
No,
that's where like the cheesiness gets a little thick.
No. Do you probably don't even remember because you're such a hater here. But do you remember like on the Yeezus tour when he did Coldest Winter? Like how? Like do you remember what happened and how awesome it was? Like do you remember? Either of you? I mean, you're both there.
Vaguely.
Like that's when the mountain, like the stage mountain, like rose up and he was like laying down and started snowing.
What does that have to do with the song?
I don't know. Just kind of wanted to bring it up, but that song is great. I love that song. That's if you asked me to pick like my favorite 2 or 3 songs, that one would be in there.
That's crazy, Darin. Like, what percentage of this album is like would you call great songs? Actually, first question: would you put any song on this album in the top 5 Kanye songs of all time?
No.
No, of course not.
I would not.
Now, what percentage of this album songs would you call great songs?
I mean, I'm
thinking like 50%, 40%.
No, I would go higher than that. I would say like maybe 70% of this album is solid and great songs. Honestly, like I don't really see where you're coming from, Gabe, saying that some of these songs are complete trash. I don't think so.
You're getting me heated here, and I'm about to do the rundown. But "Say You Will" is like so great.
Yep.
Like, how do you not?
Just go song by song, man. Go ahead.
Great.
I love the lyrics. I am.
"Say You Will" is great.
I love the lyrics in that song. The like juxtaposition he does about the kids and his life and stuff. It's fantastic.
It's all right. It's good. It's a great song.
Yeah. "Welcome to Heartbreak."
That's okay.
Love it. It's like a great introduction into like "Say You Will" is like a pre-introduction, and then we got like introduction, and then "Heartless." That's kind of the radio hit.
That's 2008 in a nutshell.
It's a great song.
No song with T-Pain can be a great song.
I don't know about that, but that's a great song. And then Amazing.
Amazing is good. It's
Amazing's
great.
It's
An
great.
amazing song.
I mean, that's got Young Jeezy on it. I'm solidly team Gucci Mane, and even I like that Young Jeezy verse in there.
Yeah.
That's a great song. Love Lockdown. I'll give you that one.
Great.
That one.
You don't like it? You don't like that one?
I like it.
It's a great song.
But I'm going to say that's maybe my least favorite on here. Paranoid. That one's great. Who doesn't like that one?
It's good. It's like a Flock of Seagulls song, kind of.
I love Flock of Seagulls, so okay.
It's like not at all moved by that.
RoboCop is maybe the that's maybe the worst song on here.
And then the rest is filler.
No. See you in
Tracks 8 through 12 are just filler.
No.
And
Bad
don't
News.
Even mention "See You in My Nightmares" because that's a very bad.
Okay,
song.
we'll get there. But Bad News. You don't like Bad News? I love that song. No, that song's great.
The best. It's the best of the filler section.
Okay. Well, "See You in My Nightmares." How do you not like that?
No.
I love Lil Wayne on that song.
I have nothing to say. Oh my
God. And then Coldest Winter. I mean, you already talked shit on that one, but that's a great song. And I even like Pinocchio Story.
Oh my God!
Like, hidden
Please
track.
stop.
No,
unnecessary.
Have you ever I mean, I wish it wasn't recorded on like a goddamn cell phone, but like a 2008 cell phone.
That thing is it's painful to listen to, Dan.
Have you ever actually listened to what he's saying though?
Yeah.
It's like, have you got the message behind it? It's like a great.
He wants
what I
to
love
be
about
a boy.
this record.
I think I got that.
No, he's saying
a real boy.
A real boy. Yeah.
Yeah, see, you're not getting it.
Oh, God, here we go.
He is
okay.
this.
Preaching over here.
All right. I think we've spent enough time on this, and basically, time will tell if me and Darin are going to sound like. Well, I guess Darin's a little on the fence, but am I going to sound like the kind of people that disparage the 808 and now feels really stupid about it?
Yes.
We'll see.
I'll give you that
we'll
answer.
see. I agree. This is a super influential record, but I just don't love it. I'm a huge Kanye fan, but it's defenders. It's cult status, just like the 808 had. Perfectly represented by Dan right now.
Yeah, no doubt.
You got me heated.
Anything
honestly,
else?
I'm like a little angry.
All right, good. Carry that passion into the proper reviews. Are we ready to move on?
Sure.
You just heard a snippet from our first proper review this week. Arthur Russell's Instrumentals. Just remind you that when Pitchfork reviews things, they review them on a 0 to 10 scale, somewhere around 8.2 or 8.3. They give it a BNM if it's a new release, or a BNR if it's a reissue of an old album, anthology, greatest hits, something like that. So Dan, take it away.
All right, yeah, we got Arthur Russell here with Instrumentals, which on Saturday got an 8.4 BNR and a review by Seth Coulter Walls. Little background, composer and cellist Arthur Russell is one of underground music's great unsung heroes. He rarely finished anything and worked under dozens of different aliases with various makeshift groups, so his discography is a absolute mess. Recent archival work and reissue campaigns have tried to sort things out, and in the last few years, Russell has developed a reputation as a major influence on the development of numerous musical genres. To give you the short version of his very confusing career, Russell studied Indian classical music in San Francisco before moving to New York in 1973 and studying minimalist and experimental composition. There, he got heavily involved in New York's avant-garde scene. He had a romantic relationship and close friendship with the one and only Allen Ginsberg. He worked with Philip Glass and Steve Reich and became the musical director of The Kitchen, a legendary avant-garde performance space. At The Kitchen, Russell sparked major controversy with the avant-garde community by booking a proto-punk and art pop bands like The Modern Lovers and Talking Heads, alongside more traditional experimental type stuff that feels like a little bit of a weird thing to say. In the late 1970s, Russell became infatuated with New York's underground disco scene and began composing experimental disco singles that became underground sensations. Many of those singles were remixed and worked into the sets of artists who were at the time inventing the house music genre. That goes good with our little 808s segment there. Russell continued writing avant-garde music and disco music while simultaneously dabbling in new wave, dance, dub, and much, much more. Sadly, he never escaped the underground and was basically unknown when he died of AIDS-related illness in 1992. Instrumentals, the album we're talking about today, was recorded in that pre-disco period, sometime between 1975 and 1978. It's essentially recorded selections from a 48-hour-long piece that drew on the improvisational theories of John Cage. The record was first issued in 1984, but it was just the second half, and the music was mastered at the wrong speed. It's been reissued a couple times since, but Pitchfork calls this new remaster the best sounding by far and the best entry point into Russell's pre-disco career. So either of you have any familiarity with Arthur Russell?
Well, to complete the hat trick, I checked out Arthur Russell after I found out that Kanye sampled him on 30 Hours.
There we go.
And it's three Kanye things we've talked about today. Yeah, I checked it out, thought it was kind of cool, and then it was like I tried to listen to a record, I think his album like Korn, and like I don't know, it just like it was sort of weird to me, and then I was reading about it and it was like, oh, this is like Arthur Russell doing, synth, like sort of like early hip hop, synth pop kind of influence stuff, and I was like, okay, so I guess I shouldn't start here. And then I was like looking around and I was like, okay, I guess there's actually nowhere to start because he's just like fucking changing all the time and it's absolutely batshit crazy and his discography is a mess. So I just gave up. But I know Pitchfork like talks about him all the time. He's like this ultimate name drop guy. So this was my first like full-fledged exposure to Arthur Russell.
Yeah, I have no familiarity. The only thing I have in common is that his first name is also my middle name. Ooh, a little bit of trivia there for you.
Thanks, Darin, for that insightful comment. I've got familiarity with Arthur Russell. I like his album World of Echo, I think it's called, and but I haven't listened to it in a long time. So this was the first in a little bit. But describe the sound of these pieces for us.
Yeah, so it's kind of tricky. I don't know. There's just not a lot of information about Arthur Russell or his like pieces, and he's got like hundreds.
Yeah,
of hours
he's pretty
of, like,
confusing
tape and stuff.
Yeah,
but if this is one 48-hour thing,
Jesus.
like selections from a 48-hour thing, it changes quite radically because we've got like sort of a bunch of tracks that are just sort of titled Volume 1, and they're kind of like an Americana kind of jam. Actually, it reminded me a little bit of like Julius Eastman's Feminine, where it's like popular music sounding minimalism. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And you can tell that it's sort of composed around like this John Cage thing of like improvising within certain parts. Like there are certain parts you can play whenever you want or something. So it's sort of like shifting. But anyway, so that's like part one. And then part two is like more like just like sort of brass and like strings. It's more like traditionally orchestral sounding, and it's kind of like the soundtrack to like the most boring film you've ever seen, I think. And then we get these last two tracks that are like almost like experiments in like electronic minimalism. I mean, what would you guys add to I just like, it doesn't even seem like one album to me at all.
No, I mean, if it is like one 48-hour piece, I feel like the second part is when they started to get a little tired. Like
I guess you got plenty of time to get there. We don't know what happened in between, but certainly you could have like a wide range in 48 hours.
Yeah, exactly. Because the first volume of the record is like very like it's got energy behind it. It's more
percussion.
Yeah, it's I hate to use this like term, but it's more like normal. Then the second part is more like droney and experimental sounding, much more sparse and minimalist.
Yeah, I mean, I think the only thing I would add to that, being somebody who's not a huge minimalist experimental fan, I guess, the Volume 1 tracks have like you mentioned percussion, but I almost think of it like drum beats. I mean, there was like it seemed as though there was like somebody actually like keeping rhythm, you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure.
And those tracks to me sounded like they were like a sound, like coming from a soundtrack or something. I don't know, like background music for a movie or something. But then once you get to volume 2, the drums are all gone, rhythm, all that, the beats, those are all gone. It's now just, it sounds like, I don't know, like the 20th century style of minimalist, almost like classical music or something.
Yeah, but like not in a way that like really gripped me. In fact, I sort of enjoyed those last 2 pieces. They're like these long kind of like electronic experimental things. They were sort of interesting, but it's weird because like I have to be in a mood. Like I have to like be in the mind frame to listen to this. And I just, no matter what I did, I could not think of all of this as one thing or feeling like it belonged together at all. I guess the first part is the most interesting. Like the volume 1 is the most like interesting thing. I mean, it's accessible, but it's also maybe the best part here. It reminded me of like Jim O'Rourke a little bit. Like,
see, I thought
thing he would do.
I thought the first part was I didn't like that as much. When I first put this on, I was like a little, God, this is an hour and a half. I got to deal with this. It was like too much, too much energy, too much of the beat, like Darin said, keeping. I like my minimalism, like, the very sparse type stuff, a lot. And I thought the second half was like fantastic. It really like saved everything. I like those last 2 pieces. Are those last 2 pieces, are those part of the 48-hour thing too? Because
I think so. There's just like no information.
Yeah, because they kind of felt a little like tacked on, in the sense that they don't have like the same like names and stuff. But I'm not really sure. But I liked both of those pieces kind of on their own. And then I like the second part a lot more.
Did you have a favorite piece, Darin, or a favorite like half 1 or half 2?
Definitely half 1 for me. And I don't know if that was just feeling fatigued by the time volume 2 came on, and I'm like, God, I probably should have listened to the volume 2 first to get through it. But because the tracks just get longer and longer, and like by the end, those last 2 tracks, which I thought was interesting, what was it, the Face of Helen or something? I thought that was a little more interesting, I guess. But I enjoyed volume 1, but I guess I'm not listening to it from a perspective of like, this guy is this is supposed to be like a minimalist experimental thing. Well,
he kind of like defies these generic boundaries, sort of like he just fair. He makes like no sense. I mean, it's all over the place, and you can kind of hear that like, okay, if this is like a minimalist composer who's making stuff like this, you can tell why he'd be into something like the Talking Heads, because he's a little bit more like open-minded to, hey, like the sort of pop world and the rock world and stuff has stuff to say, has stuff to contribute to like the kind of stuff that we like to do. And, you can imagine that causing like a big kerfuffle like in the avant-garde community. But, there's a certain like fun playfulness to that first part that I thought was interesting. Like, it's not substantial enough to be like, oh, if you put this record on, you can tell from the first second that this is a legend. Like, nothing about this whole thing was like at that level. Right. And I don't know, maybe it's not that with Arthur Russell. Maybe with Arthur Russell, it's just like all of the stuff he did in combination is like really impressive. But wherever you dive in, you're going to kind of be like, is that it?
Yeah, I mean, I think he is a little bit like that. I think you would like World of Echo a bit, though.
Yeah.
I've always heard that that's kind of his, if you got to start somewhere type thing. But yeah, he is kind of one of those just all over the place type people. But I can see, like you said, why he would be into Talking Heads and everything. It does, especially part 1 of this. It has that feeling of not being only, like so pretentious or stuck in. It's like one scene, which is nice.
Yeah, and I found that kind of like, it was neat. Like, it wasn't enough for me to like write home about, but it was neat. Did you enjoy this, Darin?
I think I would have enjoyed it more if it was broken up a bit. Having to listen to both, to me, it just sounded like 2 different records, really. Like I would have been much more interested.
Yeah,
like,
I agree.
This is Instrumentals Volume 1. That's one solid album. That would be fine. And then you have Volume 2, which is just totally different. And I'd be able to make a little more sense of this guy's very chaotic, sounding career, I guess. But I mean, it was all right. I wasn't really particularly moved by anything.
How do you feel about that 8.4 BNR?
I mean, I wouldn't give it that personally. Obviously, there's a lot of history there, a lot of interesting history, no doubt about it. I don't know. I would probably put this at like a 6.5, to be honest.
Ooh.
Sheesh.
Better or worse than 808s and Heartbreak?
Worse.
Well, I'll agree with that.
Dan's happy about that. Okay, good. But 808 is not a 10 for the record. It's not a 10.
Well, for the record, you're right. It's not 10. It's a 30 out of 10. But
ridiculous.
Yeah. Arthur Russell, the instrumentals. I agree with Darin. I do kind of wish this was split up. If it was split into a part 1, part 2, I think I'd give part 1 not the greatest. Maybe like a 7.5. And part 2, I think I would give like an 8.5. I like that a lot more. Together, it's kind of a little much. It really doesn't sound like one piece at all. I didn't know about that, it being all from this 48-hour thing until I read that from your little description there. But I don't even know that I would give this a BNR. Arthur Russell is like a good composer and stuff, but I don't know that this would be the place I would have people start. It's just. It's just too different. I don't know if
like everybody needs to hear him. Yeah. Like, no, you can be really great.
No, I agree. He's kind of like, you loved Philip Glass, you loved Steve Reich, you loved John Cage, you loved Lamont Young. You're running out of people here.
Out of people to listen to.
Yeah, hit up.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that he's like crossing into pop and like disco. And stuff. I mean, that's very interesting. But especially his pre-disco stuff, I don't think everybody needs to hear it. So I don't know about the BNR at all. I mean, if it was me, I also agree that it's hard to think of it as a whole thing, but it's like the first part I would give like an 8.2, second part I would give like a 6.5, and then like the last two songs I would give like a 7.8 or something like that. I mean, whatever that averages out to. I'm not good at math, but yeah, I don't know. I don't think it needs to be an R. So just certain people that already know they're going to like it will like it. That's it.
I agree.
All right. Well, before we move on to the next album, we just want to remind you to hit the subscribe button and help us out a lot by leaving us a nice review in the iTunes store or telling a friend about the podcast. Of course, thanks to all the people who have already done that. Also, email, tweet, or Facebook message us. Follow along with Pitchfork's reviews and email us your thoughts on the albums we'll be discussing, or ask us about anything at all. You can find us at metaphoricmusic@gmail.com or on any social media outlet at metaphoricmusic. Now, let's hear a bit of the Sunday review.
You just heard a clip from our Sunday classic this week, Liquid Liquid's Liquid Liquid EP, Successive Reflexes EP, and Optimo EP, which on Sunday got a 9.2, 9.1, and a perfect 10 for that last one, in a review by Sasha Ferreira-Jones. Hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. A little bit of background. All of these EPs were originally released between 1981 and 1983. Liquid Liquid are a fairly obscure and short-lived band that came out of New York's no-wave scene. But unlike most of their peers, the band was fascinated with the hypnotic dance grooves of Afrobeat and funk. Their amateurish playing abilities and minimalist aesthetic kept them firmly on the experimental side of things, but they were constantly seeking what they called, quote, the big beat. And in 1983, they finally found it. Famously, the groove from their song Cavern was sampled illegally on the old school rap classic White Lines, Don't Do It by Grandmaster Melly Mel and the Furious Five of Sugar Hill Records. A long and basically uninteresting legal battle that every reviewer for some reason needs to walk all the way through ensued after that. But Pitchfork argues that, quote, of the 4 immaculate songs on their final EP, this one secured Liquid Liquid a permanent place in the pop songbook. Beyond this, Pitchfork's review also claims that the band's unique sound, quote, became the blueprint of wired New York dance rock and acts like the Rapture and LCD sound system most definitely developed their styles on top of the foundation that Liquid Liquid built in the early 80s. AllMusic's review similarly argues that the band's dubby haze impacted everything from drum and bass to post-rock quite a bit later. You guys have any previous familiarity with Liquid Liquid? Dan, I know you're into no wave.
Yeah, I've actually, I love the record label Superior Viaduct, and they recently, or a little bit ago, like reissued some of these EPs, and I've like meant to listen to them because I check out most of the stuff they do, but I like hadn't got around to it. So this was the first time I'd actually listened to them. But yes, I do love no wave.
You ever heard of them, Darin?
I have not.
Me neither. Not at all. So let's try to describe the sound of these EPs.
I was reading a little bit on the internet. I saw somebody they described it as like post rock taking out the guitars, or not post rock. I'm sorry, post punk.
Post punk
deleting the guitars, and I really thought that was a good description of it. It has that like post punk feel with that like real dub influence. You get like a lot of dub drums here. There's a ton of percussion on it. And there's not a guitar. It's only bass and drums and whatnot. But yeah, it's really like
knickknacks.
Yeah. It's like
occasional knickknacks.
It's post punk without the guitars with a heavy dub influence, I think.
Would you add, Darin?
Yeah, I mean, I like the LCD sound system reference, and I mean that's kind of like the closest thing that I could reference to, in terms of like a lot of percussion, even like the vocals. It's like the singing but not singing, kind of yelling in the background a lot of times. Sure. Reminds me a lot of LCD sound system for sure. But yeah, I mean, dance, I can see it, I guess, but I mean, I must have a different understanding of like what dance music is.
If this was playing at a party, like how would you feel?
So, all right, so I roll in.
He's leaving.
I roll into Gabe's.
Right.
His, I'm assuming it's a house that Gabe's having a house party at, and he's got this on. I might stick around for a little bit, but if he plays like another track like this, I'd probably be heading out the door. So have one beer and take an early exit.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's not like it's not anything that like normal people could dance to, but you can imagine like the weirdo no wave people being like, "Dude, this is really fun. Like, we can dance to this." You know what I mean? Like that's as far as it's gonna.
They're
go.
the ones like standing next to the speaker while Gabe's playing it. They're all over there.
I mean, maybe this makes me weird, but I was like thinking about that, and I thought, that weird club we used to all go to in Tampa, the Castle. I was thinking, man, I wish they would have played this. Like, this would have been like this would have been like some rad shit to get down.
Yeah.
Get down
well,
on.
like sometimes we would go to the Castle. All right, and that maybe people who are listening to the podcast won't find this interesting at all. But we used to go to like this place that had sort of like what was it, like 80s night? But it was like
it was called Pop and New Wave. But it like there was two floors to the building, and upstairs they would basically play like weird 80s goth stuff and
weird stuff,
and downstairs they would just play like pop stuff. I
remember being like, they'd be playing like a pretty weird like non-single from like Joy Division or something, and there'd be people dancing, and I'd be like, I physically can't dance to this. It's like, I get that it's kind of got a groove, but if you could dance to that, you could definitely dance to this.
And see, I was one of the people out there. They'd play an obscure Cure song, Joy Division song. I was out there. I was on the floor. So,
well, okay. So you could pull it off. But, I do think that there is like a pretty cool groove. And it is like an LCD sound system-esque kind of like method of grooving where it's just sort of like it's quite like sparse, it's just almost like two notes back and forth or something like that. Or then, we said like they play knickknacks, like some tracks will have like a little, some sounds like a xylophone or something, like playing like a little rhythmic thing on top. And I think I don't know, they sound amateurish, but I think it gets into like a genuinely pretty cool hypnotic groove. I was kind of impressed by this. It sort of reminded me of remember that band Z's, Dan?
Yes, yeah.
Like they also make sort of like almost like Afrobeat infused like noise rock or something. And I don't know. I can't believe I've never heard these guys because I thought it was kind of a cool groove. You wouldn't dance to it, Darin, but would you at least say like there were some kind of cool grooves?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely kept my interest throughout, I would say. But as far as dancing to it, I don't think I would. Sorry, Dan.
Yeah, well, it's okay. You know, I'll go out there by myself. But if I was a little younger, but yeah, I mean, I loved it. I loved all three of the EPs. I kind of thought the latest one was maybe the best, Optimo.
Okay.
Maybe followed by the earliest one of Liquid. I thought Successive Reflexes was kind of like, it seemed like a, you know, in the middle kind of, you know, finding the next type thing. Like Liquid was like a little bit more like experimental, like kind of lo-fi-ish. And then Optimo seemed like a little more put together. And then, you know, Successive Reflexes was kind of like the in between of that. It was still good, but that was my least favorite of the three. But yeah, I mean, Optimo and Liquid, I loved both of those. I mean, next time I put in an order at Superior Viaduct, I think I'll definitely include both of these. And you know, if they're listening, want to send them to me for free, I'll take that.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, it's like I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, I thought there were just so many cool moments, but it's like I liked it less than I feel like I ought to have, because I really dig like what they're doing. Like this sort of, I mean, it's just really fractured. I mean, exactly like, you know, post-punk without guitars, but it's very fractured, but then also like really bass heavy, and it's just kind of awesome. But then I don't know, it reminded me so much of like the Rapture, and I don't know if you guys even remember the Rapture. Do you?
I do, yes.
I don't.
There was like this moment, I think like around 2002 2003, when like I think the Rapture kind of led this, but like all of a sudden like the indie kids discovered dancing, and there was like just this little wave of bands that were like trying to make danceable indie rock kind of. And I feel like only LCD Sound System sort of like grew from that and became something like bigger. But it was like this really brief thing that now just feels like really dated kind of. And, you know, I was reading stuff that like, oh, Liquid, you know, is like this kind of touchstone. They started post rock, and they started, you know, this and that, is they influenced hip hop, and and I was like, I don't know, man. It just sounds like they basically like influenced indie dance rock from 2003 to 2004 and like that. You know what I mean? Like, are we overstating their influence a little bit?
I mean, I think maybe we are a little bit, because, you know, like you said, at least the two of us are pretty into post-punk and all that, and we hadn't had, you know, we had never listened to them before, so I think that kind of shows that they're not super famous or anything. But I don't know, I think they were worth more than just saying that they, you know, created LCD Sound System and 2 years worth of music. I thought it was better.
I think
than
more than that for sure. But like what do you think, Darin? Like, does this sound like a really significant, like, I can't believe how many like musical genres they're, you know, ahead of the game on, or anything like that?
Not exactly. I mean, it sounds like a prototype for what would come later, you know, and to me, it's like one of those things, like if I had never heard this, you know, whether I heard it or not, I don't think it changes the way I listen to, you know, stuff like LCD Sound System. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think not like the way Kanye's 808 had an impact. I know, just to bring it back, but come full circle at this point. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't think it would do me any good or any harm to have listened to this or not have listened to this, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's even questionable, kind of like, if, you know, I've saw comparisons to like Tortoise, like sort of the way that Tortoise does these kind of like bassy grooves and stuff, and I think it's like questionable if they're even direct influences, or if they just kind of happen to be doing stuff that some of these bands picked up on. I don't know. It just, the thing that bugged me all week is I was like, I'm really digging this, but we've got like some fucking 9s and 10 up in here. I can't get there. Yeah, I cannot get there. I mean, are you feeling like that, Dan?
That 10. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say that these 3 EPs are 10s, but I liked them a lot. I like really dug it.
Which one got the 10? Was it Optima?
Optima got a 10.
Yeah, so that's the one that Dan, you said you liked the most, right?
Yeah, that one probably was.
But then both the other ones got, 0.2 and then 0.1 higher than Life of Pablo got. So
yeah,
how are you feeling about that?
I mean, Life of Pablo is better than all of these put together, but that's okay. Okay, well, I guess my scores. Optimo, I think I'd give Optimo like a 9. I'd give Successive Reflexes like an 8, and I think I would give Liquid like a 8.5. I think they're all those are respectable scores. I don't think these are like the greatest records ever someone's got to hear, but I enjoyed them. I'll continue to listen to these records. Like I said, I'll buy these next time I put in an order. I dug them. I mean,
Darin, do you think like one of the problems is that these are like sort of like their discography is a little bit of a mess? So we've got like a bunch of EPs there. Like if they had kind of like honed to this sound on like at least one fully fleshed out album, that we could then start talking about like 9.5s and 10s and stuff like that. But as like just a bunch of like, slap together EPs and stuff, it's like they just don't have the presentation to be on that level.
I think that's a really great point, and I'm very inclined to agree. In my listening of this through Tidal, there was just like an album called Liquid, which just combined everything, and apparently it was out of order according to Dan. And
yeah, it was backwards
for me to listen to this. Like I was, it was confusing. I'm sorry I didn't bother to figure out where one ended and where one began. So, and I also kind of figured since they were all released in like very close proximity to one another, I figured maybe there wouldn't be too big of a difference. And to be frank, I didn't think that there was like a dramatic jump. As I was listening, I felt like it sounded like a really long album of this sort of dancing, dance music or whatever. And thinking back, I definitely think I liked the first few tracks probably more than the rest. Like I felt like I kind of grew tired of it after a while. Right. So I guess I would probably say that Optimo, which was the one that got the 10, is probably my favorite as well. Yeah,
I think I would agree with that. I mean, I don't know. It just feels like if, like maybe you want to say something like, oh, this was just kind of band they wrote like in little fractured snippets and stuff. And it's like, okay, but like if Suicide could put out a classic debut record, then surely this band could put out a classic record also. Because like, it's a similar kind of idea of like Suicide just like distilling everything down into like the smallest parts and then just like tearing it apart in like this quiet, hypnotic way or something. I don't know. It's like, it just feels like sort of slightly missed potential. I think it just as a band, like their whole discography, I would give it something like an 8.2 or something like that. Would you try to put a score on this band, Darin?
I wouldn't be able to say for each individual one. So for the whole thing, I don't know if I'd go higher than an 8.0.
Damn, Dan's getting blown the fuck out this whole
I know. Tonight's not my night.
Well, have we gone too long to play a game?
God, yeah, yes. Probably. Yeah. All right. Well, next week, hopefully, you guys will continue to listen to 808s and finally see the light.
Come up with some reason to talk about Kanye again.
I know.
I should figure one out, really. But next week, we've got the Mono No Aware Ambient compilation. I'm excited for that. The new Arca, also excited for. And whatever the Sunday classic ends up being. Just tons of stuff. I'm seeing Explosions in the Sky, so I'll have that story for you. But just want to remind you to subscribe to the podcast. You can do that on iTunes, pretty much any podcast app, or you can listen in the browser on our website, which is metaphoricmusic.com. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.
So long.